I learned to breathe quietly in Taesung's presence. It wasn't something he demanded explicitly. Kang Taesung never needed to raise his voice. His control lived in the spaces between words, in the deliberate way he tilted his head when I spoke too freely, in the almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw that made my Omega instincts scream danger. At 26 I should have known better. But the truth is I didn't know anything at all. My apartment? His apartment really, though he'd put my name on some papers to make me feel like I had ownership, overlooked the Han River. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Seoul's glittering skyline like a postcard. Beautiful. Pristine. Suffocating. Jaiwan. His voice cut through my thoughts as I stood by those windows, watching the sun set over the city. You're wearing the blue shirt. Not a question. An observation that felt like correction. I glanced down at the soft cotton against my skin. Yes. Is something wrong with it? Taesung approached with that predatory grace Alpha's perfected. Silent footsteps on marble floors, his scent thickening in the air. Bergamot and something darker, something that made my body respond before my mind could catch up. My heart rate increased. My fingers trembled slightly. I prefer you in the gray, he said, standing behind me now. His reflection joined mine in the glass. It suits your complexion better. His hand settled on my shoulder, thumb pressing into the junction where neck met collarbone. Not painful. Never quite painful. Just present. Controlling. Of course, I heard myself say, I'll change. Good Omega. The words were a caress and a claim all at once. I changed into the gray shirt. I always changed. That evening we attended a dinner with his father's business associates, powerful alphas and their carefully groomed Omega partners. I'd learned the choreography: sit elegantly, speak only when addressed, let my scent remain neutral and pleasant, be a perfect reflection of Taesung's status. Your Omega is exceptionally well trained, one silver-haired alpha remarked as if I weren't sitting right there. Quite rare these days. Taesung's hand found my thigh under the table, possessive. Jaiwan understands his role. Don't you, darling? Yes, I said softly, the word automatic. I'm grateful for Taesung's guidance. The truth tasted like ash, but I'd learned to swallow it down. Later, in the car ride home, Taesung's mood had shifted. I could smell it in his pheromones, displeasure mixing with something sharper. You hesitated when Chairman Park asked about your family, he said, eyes on the road. My stomach dropped. I wasn't sure what to say. You know my parents and I aren't close. You should have redirected gracefully. Made a joke. Changed the subject. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel. Instead, you made us both look unprepared. I'm sorry, I whispered, that familiar shame creeping up my throat. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I know you didn't. His voice softened, and somehow that was worse. That's why I'm being patient with you, Jaiwan. You need to learn. For your own good. For my own good. The phrase he used like a benediction, like proof of his love. When we arrived home, he pulled me close in the elevator, nose buried in my neck, breathing in my scent. You know I only want what's best for you, he murmured against my skin. My body responded the way it had been conditioned to, pliant, accepting, grateful for his attention even as my mind screamed something I couldn't quite name. I know, I said. Thank you for being patient with me. He kissed me then, claiming my mouth with the same possessive certainty he claimed everything else. I kissed back because that's what I did. That's what I was for. That night, he made love to me with meticulous precision. Every touch calculated, every movement designed to remind me of his dominance, his control. When he pressed into me, his length filling me completely, I made the sounds he expected. Pleasure mixed with submission, gratitude for being wanted. Say you're mine, he commanded, hips moving with steady, controlled thrusts. I'm yours, I gasped, fingers gripping the sheets. Say you chose this. I chose this. The words felt rehearsed, a script I'd memorized so thoroughly I'd forgotten it wasn't truth. He finished inside me with a low growl, marking me in the most primal way. Afterward, he held me close, whispering promises of protection, of love, of forever. I stared at the ceiling and wondered why my chest felt so hollow. The bruises were always where clothing could hide them. I discovered the new one 3 days later. A dark purple bloom on my ribs where Taesung had gripped me too hard during an argument I'd already forgotten. Not forgotten really. Suppressed. Filed away in the place where I kept all the moments that didn't fit the narrative I'd built. This is love. This is what I chose. This is what Omegas are for. I was getting ready for a medical appointment. A routine checkup Taesung insisted on quarterly. Your health is important, he'd say, as if monitoring my heat cycles and hormone levels was about care rather than control. I'll drive you, he'd announced that morning. I can take a taxi, I'd offered hesitantly. I know you have that meeting. Jaiwan. Just my name, but weighted with everything unsaid. I'll drive you. So he drove me and waited in the pristine lobby while I sat in an examination room, answering questions I'd answered a dozen times before. Any changes in your cycle? No, doctor. Experiencing any pain or discomfort? Pause. Too long. The doctor's eyes sharpened with concern I didn't want to see. No, I said quickly. Everything's normal. She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. They always let it go. Taesung had been called away for an urgent business matter by the time I finished. A text message with instructions to wait for his driver. I sat in that hospital corridor, relief and shame mixing in equal measure at his absence. That's when I saw him. He moved through the hallway like water, graceful, unhurried, drawing my attention without seeming to try. Tall, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that seemed to notice everything while demanding nothing. His scent reached me before I could process why it mattered. Clean rain. Winter air. Something that made the constant tension in my shoulders loosen without permission. He wasn't an alpha. I knew that immediately, instinctively. But he wasn't omega or beta either. He was something else, something my body recognized but my mind couldn't categorize. Our eyes met for just a moment, his gaze soft, curious, unbearably kind, before he continued walking. I forgot about him almost immediately. Or I told myself I did. 3 weeks later, everything changed. Taesung had been stressed about a business deal. I'd learned to read the signs, the tighter set of his jaw, the way his sense sharpened with aggression, the clipped precision of his words. I tried to be perfect, to anticipate his needs, to avoid triggering his displeasure. But I'd made the mistake of answering a call from an old friend. Lee Miho, someone I'd known since university, one of the few connections I hadn't yet severed at Taesung's subtle insistence. Who was that? Taesung asked, appearing in the doorway of my study. Before we dive into this heartwarming, emotional, slow burn romance Omegaverse story, note, this is an original work of Milliflex channel. If seen in another channel that is not Milliflex, please report that channel for copyright and impersonation. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Just Miho, I said, setting my phone down carefully. He wanted to catch up. You sound different when you talk to him. The observation landed like accusation. My pulse quickened. Different how? Lighter. Less careful. Taesung crossed the room slowly, each step deliberate. Do I make you unhappy, Jaiwon? No. Of course not. Then why do you need other people? His hand caught my wrist, not quite painful. Am I not enough for you? You are, I said desperately. Taesung, you're everything. Then prove it. What followed was a familiar dance. Him pushing, me yielding, him claiming, me submitting. But something in me cracked that night. Some internal structure I hadn't known I was holding together. When he took me, it wasn't making love. It was possession. His length drove into me harder than necessary, fingers bruising my hips, teeth marking my throat. Each thrust felt like punishment for crimes I didn't understand. You're mine, he growled. Say it. I'm yours, I choked out, tears streaming down my face. He mistook them for passion. Afterward, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at my reflection, at the red marks blooming across my throat, the fingerprint bruises darkening on my skin, the hollow emptiness in my eyes. This is love, I told myself. But I didn't believe it anymore. The next morning, I found the courage I didn't know I possessed. I need some space, I said quietly over breakfast. Taesung's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. Space. Just a few days. Maybe I could visit my cousin, or... Is this about that phone call? His voice remained calm, which somehow made it worse. Are you punishing me for caring about you? No, I just... After everything I've given you. This apartment, your security, your purpose. He set down his cup with precise control. And you want space. The guilt crashed over me like a wave. I'm sorry, I whispered. You're right. I wasn't thinking. No, you weren't. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. I have to go to work. We'll discuss this later. Later never came because that afternoon, Taesung's anger finally found its physical form. I didn't remember falling. One moment we were arguing, my voice rising higher than I'd ever dared, Taesung's calm facade finally cracking. And the next I was on the marble floor, head spinning, warm blood trickling from somewhere I couldn't identify. Look what you made me do, Taesung said, and he sounded almost sad. Why do you push me like this, Jaiwon? He left me there. Said he needed to clear his head, think about where we went from here. Told me to clean myself up and consider what I'd done wrong. I managed to get to my car somehow. Drove myself to the hospital because calling anyone else felt impossible. Each movement sent pain lancing through my ribs, my head, my chest where breathing hurt. The emergency room lights were too bright. Voices too loud. I sat on a plastic chair, holding tissues to my bleeding temple, trying to make myself small and invisible. That's when I heard it, That voice from weeks ago. You're hurt. I looked up to find him crouched in front of me. The man from the corridor. Up close, his features were striking. Sharp jawline, full lips, eyes that held oceans of understanding I didn't want to drown in. I'm fine, I said automatically. You're bleeding on a hospital floor at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. His voice was gentle, no judgment in it. That's not fine. Something about his calm certainty made my carefully constructed walls crack further. I fell, I heard myself say. The lie tasted bitter. He didn't call me out. Instead, he asked, does he know you're hurt? The pronoun hit me like a physical blow. Not anyone. Not someone. He knew. Somehow this stranger knew. I shook my head, fresh tears spilling over. The man, I didn't even know his name yet, simply nodded once. Then this isn't love. No alpha had ever spoken like that. No one had ever spoken to me like that, like my pain mattered more than hierarchy, more than roles, more than what I was supposed to accept. My voice broke. I don't understand. I know. He shifted slightly, careful not to crowd me, respecting my space in a way I hadn't realized was possible. My name is Seo Yoonjae. I'm a counselor here. Would you let me help you get cleaned up? Something about him felt safe. Maybe it was his scent, that clean winter air that didn't trigger my omega instincts into submission or fear. Maybe it was the way he waited for my permission, asked instead of commanded. Okay, I whispered. He helped me to a private examination room, movements careful and respectful, maintaining distance unless I indicated otherwise. A nurse cleaned my wounds, the cut on my temple, the scrapes on my palms from where I tried to catch myself, the bruises already forming. Yoonjae stayed nearby but not hovering, a quiet presence that somehow made breathing easier. The doctor wants to keep you for observation, he said softly when we were alone again. Possible concussion. Panic flared. I can't. Taesung will. I stopped myself but too late. Will what? Yoonji's expression remained calm, but something flickered in his eyes. Anger maybe but not at me. Wonder where I am. Worry. The words felt hollow. There's a difference, Yoonjae said carefully, between worry and control. Between love and ownership. I wanted to argue. To defend Taesung, defend what we had, defend the narrative I'd built my entire adult life around. But sitting there, body aching, mind exhausted, I couldn't find the energy for lies. I chose this, I said instead, and it sounded like a question. Did you? Yoonjae asked. Or did you choose what seemed like survival? The question stayed with me through the night, through the tests and observations, through Taesung's furious phone calls that the nurses helped me avoid. When I was finally released the next morning, Yoonjae was waiting. I'm not here to tell you what to do, he said, offering me a card with his contact information. But if you ever want to talk about anything, call me. Even if it's 3 a.m. and you're scared. Even if you just need someone to listen. No judgment. No expectations. I took the card, fingers trembling. Why are you helping me? I asked. You don't know me. Yoonji's smile was sad and knowing. Because everyone deserves to be helped without conditions. That's not special, Jaiwan. That's just basic human dignity. The way he said my name, like it was mine, not an appendage to someone else, made something crack open in my chest. I went back to Taesung because I didn't know how not to. Because leaving felt impossible, unthinkable, like trying to breathe underwater. But I kept Yoonji's card. And late that night, when Taesung was asleep beside me, his arm heavy across my waist like a chain, I took it out and stared at the number. Basic human dignity. I'd almost forgotten what that looked like. I didn't call Yoonjae for 2 weeks. Instead, I fell back into the familiar rhythm of my life with Taesung, the careful choreography of submission, the practiced smile, the voice that knew when to soften and when to go silent. He'd apologized, of course. Brought me flowers. Explained that stress had made him lose control, that seeing me pull away had triggered something primal in his alpha nature. I love you too much, he'd said, cupping my face with surprising gentleness. Sometimes it overwhelms me. Can you forgive me? And I did. Because that's what I'd been taught love required. Endless forgiveness, infinite patience, gratitude for the moments of tenderness between the hurt. But Yoonji's questions haunted me. Does he know you're hurt? Is this love or control? Did you choose or did you choose survival? I found myself noticing things I'd trained myself to overlook. The way Taesung checked my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. How he'd suggest outfits that covered more skin, isolated me more thoroughly. The subtle way he'd steer conversations away from topics that interested me, toward topics that centered him. You're distracted lately, Taesung observed one evening. We were having dinner. He'd cooked, something he did when he wanted to remind me of his caring side. Where's your mind wandering? Nowhere important, I said too quickly. His eyes sharpened. Jaiwan. Just my name, but it carried weight. An alpha's command disguised as concern. I've just been tired, I amended. Maybe I'm coming down with something. He reached across the table, fingers wrapping around my wrist. Checking my pulse maybe? Or reminding me he could. Should I make a doctor's appointment for you? No, I'm fine. I pulled back gently, testing boundaries. I can manage. Something flickered across his face, surprise perhaps or displeasure, but he masked it quickly. Of course. You'd tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you? Of course, I echoed. That night I called Yoonjae. My hands shook as I dialed, standing on the balcony where Taesung couldn't hear. It rang twice before his voice came through, warm and unsurprised. Jaiwan. How did you know it was me? Intuition. And hope that you'd reach out. No pressure in his tone, just quiet welcome. How are you? The question was so simple. So ordinary. But no one had asked me that in months. Really asked, wanting an honest answer rather than confirmation that everything was perfect. I don't know, I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how I am. That's okay. Not knowing is its own kind of answer. We talked for an hour. About nothing and everything. Yoonjae didn't push, didn't analyze, didn't tell me what I should do or feel or want. He just listened. Asked gentle questions that made me think rather than react. Why do you flinch when his scent thickens? I tried to deny it, but Yoonji's patience was relentless in the softest way. It's instinct, I said finally. Omega response to alpha dominance. But you don't flinch with other alphas. I've seen you in public spaces. You're cautious, yes, but not afraid. He was right. I'd noticed it too in those rare moments Taesung allowed me out alone. Other alphas made me watchful. Taesung made me afraid. He's more intense, I tried to explain. More powerful. Or more threatening, Yoonjae suggested gently. There's a difference between respect and fear, Jaiwan. I ended the call when I heard Taesung stirring inside. But something had shifted. Some door I'd nailed shut was beginning to crack open. The calls became regular. Every few days when I could find privacy, I'd talk to Yoonjae. Sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for an hour. He never demanded more time than I could give, never made me feel guilty for maintaining my double life. Slowly, carefully, he taught me to question things I'd accepted as truth. Why does your body react before your mind? We were discussing a recent argument where I'd apologized before Taesung even finished explaining what I'd done wrong. Because that's faster, I said. Easier. It prevents things from escalating. It prevents you from having thoughts of your own, Yoonjae corrected, not unkindly. Your body learned to survive by surrendering. That's not the same as choosing to surrender. The distinction felt revolutionary and terrifying. But I did choose, I insisted, that familiar defense rising. I chose Taesung. I stay with him. No one's forcing me. Force comes in many forms, Yoonjae said. Sometimes it's physical. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's just the slow erosion of options until staying feels like the only choice that exists. I wanted to argue. To hang up. To go back to not thinking, not questioning, not breaking. But instead I asked, when do we meet in person? The words surprised me as much as they probably surprised him. Whenever you're ready, Yoonjae said. There's a cafe near the hospital. Quiet, public, safe. Say when. We met on a Thursday afternoon when Taesung had a business dinner I wasn't required to attend. I told him I was meeting my cousin. The lie came easily now, one more small deception in a growing collection. Yoonjae was already there when I arrived, sitting by the window with tea steaming in front of him. He stood when he saw me, not towering, not intimidating, just acknowledging my presence with quiet respect. Thank you for coming, he said, and something about being thanked for choosing to be somewhere made my throat tight. We sat. Ordered coffee I barely touched. And for the first time I really looked at him. He was beautiful in a way that didn't demand attention. Elegant features, strong hands wrapped around his cup, eyes that held depth I wanted to explore. But it was more than aesthetics. It was the way he inhabited space without dominating it. The way his scent remained subtle, present but not overwhelming. What are you? I asked suddenly. You're not alpha or omega or beta. I can feel it. Yoonji's expression shifted, something guarded and vulnerable at once. That's a complicated answer. I have time. He studied me for a long moment, as if deciding whether I was ready for truth. Finally he said, I'm what the old texts call an enigma. Rarer than any other designation. We're outside the hierarchy. Outside. The concept felt impossible. Everyone fits somewhere. That's what the system wants you to believe, he said. But enigmas exist beyond alpha dominance, omega submission, beta neutrality. We're not affected by pheromones the same way. Can't be controlled or compelled. The hierarchy has no power over us because we're not part of it. I stared at him, mind reeling. That's why your scent doesn't trigger my instincts. Exactly. I register to your omega senses, but not as a threat or a command. Just as another person. Another person. Not a role. Not a designation. Just a person. The simplicity of it broke something in me. I don't know how to be just a person, I whispered. I've been an omega for so long, I don't know who I am without it. Yoon-jae reached across the table slowly, telegraphing the movement, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his hand covered mine, warm, steady, asking nothing. Then maybe, he said softly, it's time to find out. Learning to think for myself felt like learning to walk again after years in a wheelchair. My calls with Yoon-jae became longer, deeper, more dangerous. He never told me to leave Taesung. Never said the relationship was abusive, that I deserved better, that I needed to escape. Instead, he asked questions that forced me to confront truths I'd spent years avoiding. Why do you confuse fear with loyalty? We'd been discussing a recent incident where Taesung had gone through my phone, again, and I'd thanked him for caring enough to check. It's not fear, I'd said defensively. It's consideration. He worries about me. Does he worry about you or about losing control of you? The distinction landed like a blade between ribs. I started noticing more. Cataloging moments I'd previously dismissed. The way Taesung tracked my every movement around the apartment, his gaze heavy and assessing. How he'd initiate intimacy after arguments, as if sex could erase the violence of his words. The subtle isolation, friends I no longer saw, family I'd grown distant from, interests I'd gradually abandoned because they didn't center him. And the physical responses I'd learned to interpret as love. When Taesung cornered me against counters, when his scent spiked with aggression, when his touch turned possessive, my body had learned to respond with arousal because that's what kept me safe. My mind would flood with fear, but my omega biology would slick and soften and prepare for submission because resistance meant escalation. That's not desire, Yoon-jae said when I finally confessed this. That's conditioning. Your body trying to protect you the only way it knows how. The words hit me like cold water. But I do want him sometimes, I insisted. When he's gentle, when he holds me after, when he promises to be better. You want the person he pretends to be, Yoon-jae interrupted gently. You want the fantasy of what he could become if he actually changed. That's not the same as wanting who he really is. I cried that night after our call. Sat in the bathroom with the shower running to mask the sound and sobbed until my ribs ached and my throat was raw. Because he was right. I'd fallen in love with potential. With promises. With moments of tenderness that felt precious because they were so rare. I'd convinced myself that the good moments outweighed the bad, that every relationship required sacrifice, that pain was just the price of being loved by someone powerful. But love wasn't supposed to hurt like this. Love wasn't supposed to feel like drowning. The breaking point came 3 weeks later. Taesung had discovered Yoonji's card. I'd hidden it poorly, wedged in a book I thought he'd never touch. But he'd found it anyway because he always found everything. Control meant knowing, and knowing meant invading every corner of my privacy. Who is Seo Yoon-jae? He asked, voice terrifyingly calm. We were in the bedroom. Afternoon light slanted through the windows, making everything look deceptively peaceful. A counselor, I said, heart hammering. From the hospital. And you kept his card, why? In case I needed to talk to someone. You have me to talk to. He crossed the room slowly, card held between 2 fingers like evidence of betrayal. What could you possibly need to discuss with a stranger that you can't discuss with me? Nothing, I just. Are you fucking him? The question was so sudden, so vicious that I actually laughed. The wrong response. I knew it immediately. Taesung's face darkened. His scent spiked sharp and aggressive, flooding the room with pheromones designed to make me submit, to make me cower, to make me apologize for existing. You think this is funny? He grabbed my arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You think I won't know if you're spreading your legs for someone else? I'm not. The denial came out panicked. Taesung, I swear I've never. Then why is his scent on you? It wasn't. Couldn't be. Yoon-jae and I had never touched beyond that one hand holding in the cafe, had never been close enough for scent transfer. But Taesung's paranoia had its own logic, its own reality that facts couldn't penetrate. There's no scent, I said carefully. You're imagining. The slap came fast and sharp, snapping my head to the side. Pain bloomed across my cheek, tears springing to my eyes before I could stop them. Don't lie to me, Taesung hissed. Don't fucking lie. And then, as if a switch had flipped, his expression crumpled. His hand that had struck me now cupped my face gently, thumb brushing away tears. God, Jaiwan, I'm sorry. His voice broke convincingly. I'm so sorry. You scare me sometimes. The thought of losing you makes me crazy. This was the cycle. violence and apology, hurt and comfort, pain and tenderness so intertwined I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. I know, I heard myself whisper. I'm sorry I scared you. Apologizing for being hit. The absurdity should have been obvious. That night, Taesung made love to me like he was trying to prove something. His length pressed into me with desperate intensity, hands gripping my hips, mouth marking my throat with bites that would bruise. You're mine, he groaned, thrusting harder. Say it. I'm yours, I gasped, but the words felt hollow, empty. A script I was reading without feeling. When he finished and pulled me close, whispering promises into my hair, I stared at the ceiling and finally admitted the truth I'd been avoiding. This wasn't love. This had never been love. The next morning, while Taesung was in the shower, I called Yoonjae. I need help, I said simply. I need to leave and I don't know how. Tell me where you are, he said immediately. I'm coming. He's here. I can't. Then meet me. Anywhere public. Coffee shop, park, mall. Somewhere safe. I agreed. Made an excuse about needing groceries. Taesung seemed appeased, especially after last night's reconciliation. I met Yoonjae at the same cafe as before. But this time, when I walked in and saw him rise to greet me, something fundamental shifted in my chest. He wasn't just a counselor. Wasn't just a voice on the phone. He was the first person who'd ever made me feel like I mattered more than my designation. Thank you for coming, I said, voice shaking. Always, Yoonjae replied. Tell me what you need. What I needed. Not what I should want or what was proper or what my role demanded. What I needed. I need to understand why I can't leave, I admitted. I know it's wrong. I know he's hurting me. But every time I think about walking away, I just freeze. Yoonjae nodded slowly. That's called trauma bonding. Your nervous system has learned that Taesung is both the source of pain and the source of relief from that pain. It creates a dependency that feels like love but is actually survival. How do I break it? Slowly, carefully, with support. He paused. And with permission to be imperfect at it. Over the next hour, Yoonjae helped me make a plan. Not an escape, he was careful not to push me faster than I could handle, but a roadmap. Small steps toward independence. Opening my own bank account. Reconnecting with one old friend. Keeping a bag packed just in case. Learning to recognize my own feelings instead of just reacting to Taesung's. You don't have to leave tomorrow, Yoonjae said. Or next week. Or even next month. But you need to start believing that leaving is possible. That you deserve better. That submission chosen freely is beautiful, but submission forced becomes a prison. The last part stuck with me. Submission chosen freely is beautiful. I'd never had the choice. Not really. I'd been conditioned, manipulated, controlled so thoroughly that my submission felt inevitable rather than voluntary. What if I'm wrong? I asked quietly. What if I leave and realize I made a mistake? That it really was love and I just couldn't handle it? Yoonji's expression held such compassionate hurt to look at. Then you'll learn something important about yourself. But Jaewon, real love doesn't make you question your reality this way. Real love doesn't leave you afraid and apologizing for existing. I went home that day with something I hadn't felt in years, hope. It was fragile, terrifying, probably foolish. But it was mine. Change happened in increments too small for Taesung to notice. I started with the bank account, opened it online while he was at work, chose paperless statements, kept the card hidden in a book he'd never read. Each small act of autonomy felt monumental, like I was stealing pieces of myself back one transaction at a time. I called Miho. My old friend answered on the second ring, surprise and warmth flooding his voice. Jaewon, I thought you'd fallen off the planet. I almost did, I admitted. We talked for 20 minutes, carefully avoiding topics that would reveal too much. But it felt good. Normal. Like reconnecting with a version of myself I'd thought was gone. Taesung noticed my shifting mood. You seem happier lately, he observed one evening, studying me with that analytical gaze that used to make me feel seen but now just felt invasive. Do I? I kept my voice neutral, carefully pleasant. Yes. Any particular reason? The question was a trap. It was always a trap. Just grateful for what we have, I said, the lie smooth as silk. You've taught me so much about appreciating the present. He seemed satisfied with that. Even preened a little, pleased that his teachings were taking root. But underneath my compliance, rebellion was growing. I started meeting Yoonjae regularly, always in public, always with plausible excuses, always careful. We'd talk over coffee, sometimes for hours, and he'd help me untangle the web of conditioning that had defined my adult life. Tell me about your first heat with Taesung, he said one afternoon. The memory made my skin crawl. It was intense, overwhelming. He said it proved we were meant to be together. Did you want him there? I opened my mouth to say yes, then stopped. Actually thought about it? I don't know. I was so out of my mind with heat and he was just there. Insistent. He said omegas shouldn't go through heat alone, that it was dangerous. It can be, Yoonjae acknowledged. But you should have had a choice. Should have been able to consent clearly before your heat started. The revelation hit me hard. I'd never consented. Not really. Taesung had simply decided we'd spend my heat together, and I'd been too conditioned to question it. He's taken a lot from you, Yoonjae said gently. Your choices, your autonomy, your ability to trust your own feelings. That's going to take time to reclaim. What if I can't? The fear was real, visceral. What if I'm too broken? Yoonjae reached across the table, waiting for my permission before taking my hand. His touch was warm, steady, asking nothing. You're not broken, he said firmly. You're surviving. There's a difference. And when you're ready to do more than survive, when you're ready to actually live, I'll be here to help. Something in his eyes made my breath catch. It wasn't pity. It wasn't obligation. It was something dangerously close to affection. Why do you care? I asked. Really? You don't know me. Don't owe me anything. Because everyone deserves to be free, Yoonjae said simply. And because. He paused, seeming to weigh his words carefully. Because I see you, Jaewon. Not the Omega Taesung shaped you into. Not the role you've learned to play. The actual you. And that person is worth caring about. I cried. Right there in the cafe, tears spilling over despite my best efforts to contain them. Yoonjae didn't try to stop me or comfort me or make it better. He just held my hand and let me feel without judgment. That night, Taesung wanted sex. I'd been avoiding it where possible, claiming fatigue, headaches, stress. But his patience had limits and I could feel them approaching. Come here, he said, voice carrying that alpha command that made my body want to obey even as my mind recoiled. I went. Habit and conditioning guided me to the bedroom, to his arms, to the practiced motions of submission. But when his length pressed into me, when his hands gripped my hips, when his scent flooded my senses, my body didn't respond the way it used to. I didn't slick, didn't soften, didn't feel that desperate arousal I'd learned to associate with alpha dominance. What's wrong? Taesung demanded, noticing my lack of response. Nothing, I just. You're dry. He pulled back, offense and confusion warring in his expression. Why are you dry? Because my body was finally learning what my mind had known for months. This wasn't desire. This was just fear wearing desire's mask. I'm sorry, I said automatically. Maybe I'm just tired. You're never tired for me. His voice hardened. What's changed? Everything I wanted to say. Everything has changed because someone showed me that love doesn't have to hurt. But I couldn't say that. So I did what I'd learned to do. I apologized, coaxed my body into compliance through sheer will, and let him use me while I disappeared into my own head. Afterward, lying in the dark with his arm heavy across my waist, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. I was going to leave. Not tomorrow. Not next week. But soon. I just had to figure out how to survive until then. The next time I saw Yoonjae, I told him about my decision. I'm ready, I said. Or I will be. I need to leave and I need help doing it safely. His expression held pride and concern in equal measure. Okay, let's make a real plan. When do you think you'll be ready? My heat is coming in 3 weeks. Taesung will expect to spend it with me, but if I can arrange to be somewhere else, somewhere he can't reach me, maybe that's my window. Yoonjae nodded slowly. I can help with that. There are Omega heat sanctuaries, private, protected, no alphas allowed. I can get you into one. Hope and terror mingled in my chest. He'll be furious. He will. Which is why you need to be somewhere he absolutely cannot access you. And after your heat breaks, you decide your next steps from a place of clarity rather than vulnerability. It sounded impossible. It sounded terrifying. It sounded like freedom. There's something else, Yoonjae said quietly. Something I need to tell you before this goes any further. My heart stuttered. What? I care about you, Jaewon. More than I probably should in my professional capacity. I need you to know that my help isn't conditional on anything, but I also need to be honest about my feelings. I stared at him, this enigma who'd shown me kindness without demanding payment, who'd taught me to question without forcing answers, who'd made me feel like a person rather than a possession. I care about you too, I admitted. And that terrifies me. I know. His smile was gentle. But there's a difference between caring that controls and caring that frees. I want you free, Jaewon. Even if that means choosing a life that doesn't include me. The contrast to Taesung couldn't have been starker. One man who claimed to love me while systematically destroying my autonomy. Another who cared about me and wanted nothing more than my freedom to choose. For the first time in my life, I understood what love could actually look like. The fight started over something insignificant. I'd forgotten to pick up Taesung's dry cleaning. How hard is it to remember one simple task? His voice was controlled, but I could smell his anger sharpening the air. I'm sorry, I got distracted. Distracted with what? You don't work. You don't have responsibilities besides maintaining our home. He set down his briefcase with precise force. So what exactly distracted you? I'd been at the bank, transferring more money into my secret account. Preparing. Nothing important, I said. I just forgot. It won't happen again. You've been forgetting a lot lately. He crossed his arms, studying me like a specimen under glass. Forgetting tasks, forgetting to check in, forgetting that your primary purpose is supporting me. Should I be concerned? Yes, I thought. You should be terrified because I'm finally waking up. No, I said aloud. I'll do better. But I didn't. Couldn't. Each day brought new small rebellions. Coming home 5 minutes late, making decisions without asking permission, wearing clothes he hadn't approved. My heat was approaching. I could feel it in my body's increasing sensitivity, the way my scent was beginning to sweeten, the restlessness that made sitting still nearly impossible. You'll stay home for your heat, Taesung announced over dinner a week before it was due. I've cleared my schedule. We'll spend it together like always. Actually, I said carefully, I was thinking about using a heat sanctuary this time. The silence that followed was deafening. Excuse me? Taesung's fork clattered against his plate. Just to try something different. Give you a break from... A break. His laugh was sharp and humorless. You think I want a break from caring for my Omega during his most vulnerable time? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Jaiwan? Because it sounds like you're trying to exclude me from your heat. Like you don't want me there. The truth sat heavy on my tongue. I didn't want him there. Didn't want his hands on me, his length inside me, his voice commanding my submission while my body was too heat-drunk to resist. I just thought some space might be healthy. I tried. Space. Taesung stood, chair scraping harshly against the floor. That's the second time you've asked for space from me. The second time you've implied that my presence in your life is somehow oppressive. He crossed to me, gripped my chin, forced me to meet his eyes. After everything I've given you, the life I've provided, the protection, the purpose, and you want space. His scent crashed over me, aggressive, dominating, designed to make me submit. My Omega instinct screamed to apologize, to comply, to do whatever it took to appease him. But something else was stronger now. Something Yoonjae had helped me cultivate. My own will. Yes, I said quietly. I want space. The slap came harder this time. Then another. Then his hand in my hair, yanking my head back, his face inches from mine. You ungrateful little? He caught himself, but barely. I've been patient. So patient. But you're testing me, Jaiwan. Pushing boundaries to see what you can get away with. I'm not. Don't lie. He shook me once, hard enough to rattle my teeth. You think I don't notice? The secret phone calls. The changes in your set. The way you pull away when I touch you. You're hiding something. Terror and clarity warred in my chest. This was it. The moment everything would either explode or I'd break completely. I'm leaving, I heard myself say. The words hung in the air between us. Impossible. Irreversible. Taesung's expression went through several emotions, shock, disbelief, rage, before settling on something cold and controlled. No, he said simply. You're not. I am. After my heat, You're mine. His grip tightened painfully. You chose this. Chose me. You don't get to just leave because things get difficult. This isn't about difficulty, I said, voice shaking but resolute. This is about survival. You're hurting me, Taesung. You've been hurting me for years and I can't. I love you. The shout was so sudden, so raw that I flinched. Everything I do is because I love you. The structure, the guidance, keeping you safe, that's love. That's not love, I whispered. That's ownership. He released me so abruptly I stumbled. Then he laughed, a broken, dangerous sound. You've been talking to someone? That counselor. The one whose card I found. He put these ideas in your head. He helped me remember I'm a person. Not just an Omega. Not just your possession. You are mine, Taesung hissed. By bond, by choice, by every law that governs our society. You can't just leave. Watch me. I turned to walk away. Made it 3 steps before he grabbed me, slammed me against the wall hard enough to knock the breath from my lungs. You'll regret this, he said, voice deadly calm. You'll come crawling back, begging for forgiveness. Because without me you're nothing. Just another Omega who couldn't handle the gifts he was given. His length pressed against me through our clothes, a grotesque parody of intimacy. I could take you right now, he murmured. Remind your body who you belong to. Make you remember what you're throwing away. That would be rape, I said clearly. And we both know it. Something in my tone must have penetrated because he stepped back, ran a hand through his hair, straightened his jacket. Get out, he said quietly. Take the night. Think about what you're doing. And when you come to your senses, we'll discuss how you're going to make this up to me. I didn't wait. Grabbed my phone and wallet, the emergency bag I'd hidden, and left. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial Yunji's number. He answered immediately. Jaiwan. I left, I gasped. I told him I'm leaving and I left and I don't know where to go. Where are you now? Walking. Just walking. I can't. Send me your location. I'm coming to get you. Just stay in public, stay safe, and I'll be there in 15 minutes. He was there in 12. I saw his car pull up and suddenly I was crying again, great heaving sobs that I couldn't control. Yoonjae got out, approached carefully, and when I nodded permission, pulled me into an embrace that felt nothing like Taesung's possessive holds. This felt like safety. Like choice. Like coming home. You did it, he murmured into my hair. You were so brave. I'm terrified, I admitted. I know. But you're safe now. I promise you're safe. He drove me to his apartment. Spacious, minimalist, smelling faintly of that clean winter air that had always calmed me. Made me tea. Gave me space to breathe and process and fall apart without judgment. Your heat is coming soon, he said gently. We need to get you into a sanctuary tomorrow. Somewhere Taesung absolutely cannot reach you. Okay. I was so tired. So wrung out. Thank you. For everything. Yunji's smile was soft. Thank you for trusting me. For trusting yourself. That night, I slept on his couch, the first sleep in years that wasn't shadowed by fear. And when I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. The Omega Heat Sanctuary was nothing like I'd imagined. Yoonjae drove me there the next morning, a discreet building in a quiet neighborhood with gardens that smelled like lavender and jasmine. The woman who greeted us at the door, a beta named Kim So-hee, had kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. You're safe here, she said simply. No alphas allowed on the premises. No exceptions. No one can access you without your explicit permission. I signed the paperwork with shaking hands. Yoonjae waited nearby, respectful of the boundary. He couldn't enter the sanctuary proper, but he stayed until I was settled. I'll be here when you come out, he promised. However long it takes. My heat hit that evening like a tsunami. But this time, there was no Taesung demanding entrance to my body. No alpha scent overwhelming my senses. No commands disguised as care. Just me, alone in a comfortable room, riding out the waves of need with my own hands and the privacy to actually feel what my body wanted rather than what I'd been conditioned to provide. It was excruciating. Lonely. Overwhelming. It was also the first heat of my entire adult life where I wasn't violated. The sanctuary staff checked on me regularly, offering water, nourishment, cool cloths when the fever got too intense. No judgment. No expectation. Just care. On the third day, when the worst had passed and I could think clearly again, I cried. Not from pain or need, but from relief. From the staggering realization that this was what safety felt like. This was autonomy. This was my body being mine and mine alone. When I emerged 5 days later, hollow-eyed and exhausted but fundamentally changed, Yoonjae was waiting in the reception area exactly as he'd promised. He stood when he saw me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Relief and concern and something deeper, something that looked almost like reverence. How are you? He asked softly. Free, I said. For the first time in years, I feel free. We went back to his apartment. He made me food, ran me a bath, gave me space to exist without expectation. And when I finally felt human again, we talked. Taesung has been calling, I admitted. Texting. 20-30 messages a day. Each one a different manipulation. Anger, then apologies, then threats, then promises to change. Classic abuse cycle, Yoonjae said. Have you responded? No. But I'm scared to block him. Scared of what he might do if he can't reach me. That's valid. And also exactly the control he's counting on, keeping you afraid, keeping you accessible. Yoonjae paused. I can help you get a restraining order if you want one. Would that even work? He's so powerful, his family. Has money, yes. But they don't have immunity from the law. Especially not when there's documentation. He gestured to my phone. Save those messages. Screenshot them. Every threat, every manipulation. Build your evidence. Over the next week, I did exactly that. Built a case against Taesung brick by brick. Messages showing his controlling behavior, photos of bruises I'd hidden for years, testimony from hospital visits. It was harder than leaving. Harder than saying no. Because this was taking action, claiming my own narrative, refusing to be a victim anymore. Yoonjae helped me find a lawyer. helped me file the restraining order, held my hand through the court appearance where I had to face Taesung across a room and watch his mask crack completely. "This is ridiculous," Taesung said, all charm and confidence for the judge. "Jaiwan is my omega. We had a misunderstanding, nothing more." But my lawyer presented the evidence. The messages. The medical records. My testimony about years of coercive control. The restraining order was granted. Taesung's face as we left the courthouse was a study in rage barely contained. But he couldn't touch me. Couldn't approach me. For the first time, the law was protecting me from him. "You'll regret this," he called out as I walked away. "You'll come crawling back." I didn't even turn around. That night, Yoonjae and I sat on his balcony watching the city lights sparkle below. I'd been staying with him for 2 weeks now, platonically, carefully, with all the boundaries firmly in place. But something was shifting between us. Something inevitable and terrifying and beautiful. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For everything. For being patient with me." "You don't need to thank me for basic human decency," Yoonjae said. "But you gave me more than that." I turned to face him fully. "You gave me myself back." His eyes held mine, those deep, knowing eyes that had seen me from the start. "You always had yourself, Jaiwan. I just helped you remember." Is this real? The question escaped before I could stop it. This thing between us. Or am I just transferring dependency from Taesung to you? Yoonjae considered the question seriously. "I can't answer that for you. Only you can know what you feel and why. But I can tell you this, I won't take anything from you that you don't freely offer. I won't push you into anything before you're ready. And if you need time alone to figure out who you are outside of relationships, I'll support that too." What if I don't want time alone? My heart was racing. What if I want to explore this, whatever this is, between us? "Then we explore it," he said simply. Slowly, carefully. "With your consent every step of the way." I kissed him. Leaned forward and pressed my lips to his, tasting possibility and freedom and something that felt shockingly like joy. He kissed back gently, reverently, hands coming up to cup my face with a tenderness that made me want to cry. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "I need you to know something," he said. "I'm falling in love with you. I've been for weeks. But my love doesn't come with conditions or demands. It doesn't require you to change or submit or be anything other than who you are." "I don't know who I am yet," I admitted. "I know." His smile was soft. "But I'd like to help you find out. If you'll let me." "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I'd like that." We took things slowly. So slowly it sometimes felt painful, but in the best possible way. Yoonjae would ask before touching me. Would check in constantly about my comfort. Would stop immediately if I showed even a hint of hesitation. It was the opposite of everything I'd known. And it was perfect. Our first time making love happened 3 months after I'd left Taesung. I initiated it, crawled into Yoonji's lap one evening, kissed him with clear intent and whispered, "I want you. I'm ready." "Are you sure?" he asked even as his body responded to mine. "Yes, I'm sure. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you." He undressed me with patient reverence, lips following the path of revealed skin, murmuring praise that had nothing to do with submission and everything to do with genuine appreciation. When he finally pressed into me, his length filling me slowly and carefully, it felt nothing like the violation I'd endured with Taesung. This felt like connection. Like two people choosing each other freely. "You're so beautiful," Yoonjae breathed, moving with gentle rhythm. "So strong. So incredible." I cried. Clung to him. Let myself feel pleasure without fear, without the need to perform or please or prove anything. And when we came together, his name a prayer on my lips, I finally understood what making love actually meant. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, I said, "I think I'm falling in love with you too." Yoonjae kissed my temple. "I know. And that's the most precious gift you could give me, your love freely chosen with no fear or coercion behind it." "Will it always be this good?" I asked. "It will be different," he said honestly. "Sometimes easier, sometimes harder. But as long as we're choosing each other every day, as long as we communicate and respect each other's boundaries, we'll figure it out together." Together. What a beautiful word. I stood in front of the mirror in our bathroom, hands resting on the small swell of my stomach. Pregnant. 5 months along, carrying the child of this devastatingly handsome enigma who'd shown me nothing but love and healing and patience. It should have terrified me. Should have triggered all my trauma around vulnerability and control. Instead, I felt nothing but overwhelming joy. "How are you feeling?" Yoonjae asked, appearing in the doorway with that soft smile I'd learned to cherish. "Good. Really good." I turned to face him. A little surreal. But good. He crossed to me, wrapped his arms around me from behind, hands settling over mine on my stomach. Our little miracle, he murmured. I'd thought long and hard before deciding to get pregnant. Had worked through it extensively with my therapist. Yes, I had a therapist now, someone who specialized in trauma recovery and helped me continue unpacking years of conditioning. But ultimately I'd chosen this. Chosen to create new life with someone who respected my autonomy, who celebrated my strength, who loved me without trying to own me. I got a message from Miho, I said. He wants to throw us a baby shower. Yunji's smile widened. That sounds perfect. Your friends have been wonderful through all this. My friends, family I'd reconnected with. A life I'd built brick by brick, choice by choice. I'd even found work, part-time at an Omega advocacy center, helping others recognize the signs of coercive control, offering the support I'd once desperately needed. Taesung tried to contact me again, I mentioned, through a third party. Wanted to apologize and make amends. Yunji's embrace tightened slightly. How do you feel about that? Nothing. I feel nothing for him. He's a chapter in my past, not a person in my present. I turned in Yunji's arms. You're my present. Our baby. Our future. He doesn't get space in that anymore. I'm proud of you, Yunjae said. So proud of how far you've come. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have, he corrected gently. But I'm honored you let me be part of your journey. That night we made love slowly, carefully, my changing body requiring new considerations and adjustments. Yunjae took his time, worshipping every curve, every change, making me feel cherished and desired and safe. When his length pressed into me, when his hands cradled my stomach protectively, when his voice murmured love and promises into my skin, I felt complete in a way I'd never imagined possible. I love you, I gasped as pleasure built between us. I love you, he answered. I choose you. Today and every day. I choose you too, I breathed. Always. We came together, gentle and reverent, creating new memories to replace the painful ones. Afterward, lying in his arms with his hand on my stomach, I thought about everything I'd survived. Everything I'd overcome. Everything I'd learned. Love wasn't supposed to hurt. Submission wasn't my default state. Being an Omega didn't mean being owned. And freedom, true freedom, was worth every scary step it took to claim it. Our baby kicked then, a flutter against Yunji's palm. His face lit up with wonder. Hello, little one, he whispered. We're so excited to meet you. I placed my hand over his, our fingers intertwining. They're going to grow up knowing what real love looks like, I said. What healthy relationships are. What it means to be valued for who you are, not what you can provide. They will, Yunjae agreed, because they have you as a parent. You who survived so much and came out the other side stronger and more beautiful than ever. I cried happy tears this time. Let them fall freely because I'd learned that tears weren't weakness. They were just feeling, honest and human and allowed. Thank you, I whispered, for seeing me, for waiting, for loving me the right way. Thank you, he countered, for being brave enough to choose yourself, to choose us, to choose this incredible life we're building together. We stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, hands on our growing child, hearts full of hope and promise and love. I thought I was broken beyond repair. But I'd learned the truth, I was never broken, just trapped, conditioned, controlled. And now I was free. Free to love without fear. Free to choose without coercion. Free to be simply, wonderfully, completely myself. And that freedom, that beautiful, terrifying, precious freedom, was worth everything it had cost to claim it. The evening light filtered through our bedroom curtains, casting everything in soft gold. I stood by the window, one hand resting on my rounded belly, feeling our baby's gentle movements beneath my palm. 5 months pregnant, and every day felt like a miracle I was still learning to believe in. You're beautiful like this, Yunji's voice came from behind me, warm and reverent. I turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, his dark eyes soft with an affection that still made my breath catch. Even after a year together, I sometimes couldn't believe this was real, that love could feel like this. Safe, chosen, free. I feel like a balloon, I said with a soft laugh, gesturing to my changing body. He crossed the room in a few strides, hands coming to rest gently on my waist. You feel like the most precious thing in my world, he corrected, pressing a kiss to my temple. His scent wrapped around me, that clean winter air that had always calmed my Omega instincts without demanding anything in return. My body responded the way it always did now, with genuine desire rather than conditioned fear. A slow warmth blooming in my chest, spreading outward. I want you, I admitted softly, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. Is that okay? With the baby and everything. More than okay, Yunjae murmured, cupping my face with both hands. But only if you're comfortable. Only if you want this. That question, That constant, beautiful asking still made emotion tighten my throat. He never assumed, never took, always waited for my yes. I want this, I said clearly. I want you. He kissed me then, slow and deep, his lips moving against mine with patient reverence. Not claiming, not possessing, just sharing. His tongue traced the seam of my lips, requesting entrance rather than demanding it, and I opened for him with a soft sigh. My hands found his chest, fingers curling into his shirt as the kiss deepened. Heat built between us gradually, naturally, without the sharp edge of pheromone-driven urgency I'd once thought was inevitable. Bed, Yoonjae breathed against my mouth. Let me take care of you. He guided me to our bed, our sanctuary where every memory was one of tenderness and choice. I sat on the edge while he knelt before me, hands gentle on my ankles as he removed my socks, then sliding up my calves with feather-light touches. Tell me if anything feels uncomfortable, he said, fingers finding the waistband of my lounge pants. Tell me if you need to stop. I will, I promised. But I don't want to stop. He undressed me slowly, each revealed inch of skin greeted with soft kisses, my thighs, the swell of my stomach, my chest. His lips traced patterns of worship, murmuring praise that had nothing to do with submission and everything to do with genuine adoration. So beautiful, he whispered against my skin. So strong. Look at you growing our child. Tears pricked my eyes, the good kind. I'd learned there were different kinds of tears. These were joy and gratitude and overwhelming love. I reached for him, tugging at his shirt. Your turn. I want to see you. Yoonjae smiled and stood, undressing with unhurried grace. His body was lean and elegant, and my omega senses registered his presence without the overwhelming dominance I'd once thought was necessary. He was just Yoonjae, the man I loved, the father of my child. He settled beside me on the bed, careful of my stomach, one hand coming to rest on the swell of our baby. Hi there, little one, he murmured. Give us a moment with each other, okay? I laughed softly, threading my fingers through his hair. They're already a distraction. The best kind, Yoonjae said, leaning in to kiss me again. We took our time learning my changing body together. What positions were comfortable now, what angles worked, how to move without putting pressure on my stomach. It was collaborative and careful and so full of love I thought my heart might burst. When Yoonjae finally settled between my thighs, his length pressing at my entrance, he paused. Met my eyes with such tender intensity it stole my breath. I love you, he said simply. Thank you for choosing me. For choosing this. I love you too, I whispered. Always. He entered me slowly, carefully, watching my face for any sign of discomfort. The stretch was familiar now, welcome, my body accepting him without the fear that used to tighten my muscles. Just warmth and fullness and connection. Okay? He asked, voice slightly strained with restraint. Perfect, I breathed. You're perfect. He began to move, gentle, measured thrusts that built pleasure gradually. His hand stayed on my stomach, protective and reverent, while the other found mine and laced our fingers together. You feel amazing, Yoonjae murmured, pressing kisses to my jaw, my throat, my shoulder. So warm. So perfect. Pleasure built like slow-rising tide, washing through me in waves that made my toes curl and my breath hitch. Nothing frantic or desperate, just steady, beautiful intimacy. I arched slightly, adjusting the angle, and gasped as he hit that perfect spot inside me. There? Yoonjae asked, repeating the motion. Yes, I moaned softly. Right there. He maintained that rhythm, steady and sure, his length filling me completely with each careful thrust. His breathing grew heavier, his control starting to fray at the edges, but he never lost focus on my pleasure. Touch yourself for me, he suggested gently. I want to feel you come around me. I slipped a hand between us, fingers finding the sensitive bundle of nerves that made electricity spark through my veins. Combined with Yoonji's movements, the dual stimulation quickly had me climbing toward release. That's it, he encouraged, voice rough with his own building pleasure. Let go, Jaiwan. I've got you. The orgasm rolled through me like gentle thunder, powerful but not overwhelming, pleasure that radiated from my core outward in waves of warmth. I cried out softly, squeezing around Yoonji's length as my body trembled with release. Beautiful, he groaned. You're so beautiful. He followed moments later, his own climax taking him with a low moan as he spilled inside me. His hand on my stomach tightened slightly, protective, while his other hand gripped mine like an anchor. We stayed connected for a long moment after, both catching our breath, hearts racing in sync. Then Yoonjae carefully withdrew and settled beside me, gathering me into his arms with infinite gentleness. How do you feel? He asked, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Loved, I said simply. Cherished. Safe. Good. He smiled against my skin. That's exactly how you should feel. Always. I nestled closer, one hand on my belly where our baby had resumed their gentle movements. Yoonji's hand joined mine, and we lay there together in the golden evening light, a family in the making, built on foundation of choice and healing and genuine love. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For showing me what love is supposed to feel like. For waiting while I learned to trust again. For loving me the right way. Yoonjae tilted my chin up, meeting my eyes with such warmth it made my chest ache. Thank you for being brave enough to leave what hurt you. For choosing yourself first and then choosing to let me in. That's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. I kissed him softly, pouring everything I felt into it, gratitude and love and hope and promise. I choose you, I murmured against his lips. Today, tomorrow, always. And I choose you, he replied. Every single day. We fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other, hands resting on our growing child. And for the first time in my life, sleep came without fear or nightmares. Just peace. Just love. Just us.